When you think about the dangers of flying, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably engine failure, right? Or maybe some crazy weather. But what if I told you the data points to something else entirely? Something a lot more human. Turns out, the biggest risk in aviation isn't the machine, it's the mind. And the numbers behind that, they're pretty staggering.
Take a look at this. 80%. Just let that sink in for a second. It's a huge, huge number. And it represents a really stark reality in aviation safety. But 80% of what?
Yep. According to the FAA, a whopping 80% of all aviation accidents are related to human factors. That means for every 5 accidents, 4 of them, 4, can be traced back to a mistake made by a person, not a busted piece of equipment. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
So this really gets us to the heart of it all today. What are these super common human errors that can have such, devastating consequences? And maybe even more important, once we know what they are, is there a system, a way to actually fight back against them?
Okay, to really wrap our heads around this, we need to get that human error isn't just one simple thing. It's more like a 2-layer problem. You've got the actions themselves, the mistakes, and then, underneath all that, you have the mindsets, the attitudes that lead to those actions in the first place.
So this first layer is what the FAA calls behavioral traps. The best way to think about these is they're like common mental pitfalls. They're these recurring patterns of bad decision-making that can snag any pilot, even one with thousands of hours of experience.
And these traps are shockingly common. A study from Wright State University dug into a bunch of crew-related accidents and found some incredible patterns. Look at this. The top offender? Just neglecting to do your flight plan or use a checklist. That was a factor in 72% of the accidents they looked at. Right behind that is losing your situational awareness, basically not knowing where you are or what's going on. And then there's getting behind the aircraft, which is just a fancy way of saying you're letting the plan on the situation get ahead of you.
And that leads us to the second, much deeper layer of this whole problem. Okay, so falling into a trap is the what. But why? Why does it happen? What is going on inside a pilot's head that makes them decide to skip a checklist or just lose track of where they are?
Well, this is where it gets really fascinating. The FAA identified 5 specific mindsets. They call them hazardous attitudes that are pretty much the psychological root cause for all this dangerous behavior. Let's break them down.
First up, we've got the anti-authority attitude. You know this person. This is the pilot who thinks the rules are for everybody else. They might blow off a checklist because, hey, they've done it 1,000 times. Or they might ignore advice from air traffic control because they're convinced they know better.
Now, to fight these attitudes, the FAA came up with something brilliant and simple, an antidote. For this anti-authority mindset, it's a conscious, deliberate reminder, follow the rules. They are usually right. It's like a mental reset button to get you back on track.
Next up, impulsivity. This is that feeling of needing to do something, anything, right now. Instead of taking a second to think things through, an impulsive pilot just does the first thing that pops into their head. And yeah, that's usually not the best choice. Think about rushing a pre-flight check just because you want to get home a little sooner.
And the antidote is just as straightforward. Not so fast. Think first. It's a simple command you give yourself to just pause, breathe, and think about the best thing to do, not just the fastest.
Oh man, this next one. We've all been guilty of this. That feeling of invulnerability. It's this deep down belief that accidents, those are things that happen to other people. This is such a dangerous way to think because it leads pilots to take risks they have no business taking, all because they think they're somehow immune to the consequences.
The antidote here is just a solid dose of reality. It could happen to me. Just acknowledging that you're vulnerable, that you're not invincible, that's the first step to actually managing risk the right way.
All right, attitude number 4 is macho. And this isn't just a guy thing, not at all. It's about being overconfident and feeling like you have to prove you're the best by taking foolish chances. It's that whole watch this mentality, which has absolutely no place in a cockpit.
The antidote here kind of reframes what it means to be a good pilot. It's not about being a daredevil, it's about being smart. The antidote is simple. Taking chances is foolish. And finally, we have resignation. This is what happens when a pilot faces a tough situation and just feels helpless. They give up control. They start thinking, what's the use? And basically leave the outcome to luck instead of their own skill and their own training. The antidote for resignation is all about empowerment. It's a reminder of a pilot's own agency. I'm not helpless. I can make a difference. It's a powerful shift from being a passive victim to an active problem solver.
So, okay, we have these behavioral traps, and we have the hazardous attitudes that cause them. For decades, this was just a massive, seemingly unsolvable problem in aviation. But then, in the late 1970s, a revolution in thinking started, and it was called Crew Resource Management, or CRM.
CRM completely changed the culture of the cockpit. I mean, before CRM, the captain was essentially a king. Whatever they said went, period. CRM came along and introduced this radical idea that the entire crew, the co-pilots, the flight engineers, even the flight attendants, were all valuable resources. It's a system that's built on communication and teamwork, not just a strict hierarchy.
And this wasn't just some fluffy, nice idea. As you can see from this FAA advisory circular from back in '91, it became formalized training. The culture literally shifted from "the captain is always right" to "safety is a team sport." It actually encouraged co-pilots and others to speak up if they saw something wrong.
But the big question is, does it really work? In a real-world, life-or-death crisis? Well, for that, let's look at one of the most famous and incredible examples in all of aviation history, United Flight 232.
So in 1989, a DC-10 had a catastrophic engine failure that took out all of its flight controls, all of them. The crew had to figure out how to fly this massive jet using only the throttles of the two remaining engines, something nobody had ever trained for. Captain Al Haynes later said that the survival of 184 people that day was a direct result of his CRM training. It allowed the 4 crew members in the cockpit to pool all their brain power and literally invent a way to fly an unflyable airplane.
The success of CRM was so undeniable, so profound, that its ideas have spread far beyond aviation. Today, you can find the same principles at work in surgical operating rooms, with firefighting crews on the ground and on the bridges of massive cargo ships. Basically, anywhere that human error in a high-stakes job can be catastrophic, CRM is the model for safety.
So, we've gone from these psychological traps that lead to disaster to the powerful systems we've built to fight back. Systems that have saved countless lives. And it really leaves us with a pretty fascinating question for our own lives, right? Which one of these hazardous attitudes, impulsivity, macho, invulnerability, do you see pop up when you're making decisions? And what could your antidote be?